welcome back to Data Driven Finance, brought to you by Yodlee. I'm Mike Stiles, and my guest today is Gretchen Rodriguez, Head of Product for Payments at TD. She approaches products with an entrepreneur's mindset and has designed and launched products in fintech, e-commerce, cybersecurity, identity, and trust. Gretchen spent time as a product owner at eBay, serves on a couple of boards, and as a product advisor to Med Fem Wellness. And we're going to be talking about emerging payments and the ecosystem that supports that. So Gretchen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mike, for the invite. I'm very looking forward to this conversation today.
Yeah, me as well. Well, I can tell that you have a lot of broad interests around finance, a lot of intellectual curiosity. But for our show, kind of tell me what you find so compelling about payments and how the way that we pay for products and services is changing.
Yeah, so definitely, Mike. I started this journey when I was at eBay. I remember back in the days, there was this payments group at eBay, and I was like, what is this thing? Why is this such a big thing? Like, I don't see anything special there. But then I started to realize like there was actually a lot of things that were pretty unique in the ecosystem. So I started to fall in love with that for multiple reasons, right? One, it's because as a user, we see payments almost as an invisible portion of your purchase, right? That last mile. But the reality is that there are a lot of things happening behind the scenes and a lot of behavioral economics and the science of how the user think and purchase and all of that. What are the different choices to pick the payment A versus B? So I definitely fell in love with all of this, and it's exciting. It's quite exciting, and it's a unique moment, the one that we're living now, where we see other emerging payment capabilities coming. And again, if we mix that with AI and data and all of those great things that we hear on the street, we're definitely just tapping into an industry that is quite fascinating. So we don't have room for just to get bored here. You always have something new to learn and to apply, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, that's interesting to me that you were working with the behavioral aspect of payments and how people want to make payments. What was kind of the most interesting thing that you found out about how people behave when making online payments?
Yes, definitely. We see different nuances there, right? Like users that might be motivated to choose certain methods to pay versus others based on the purchase, the amount of the purchase, based on how quick the money will be delivered. Let's say if you decide to use wires versus ACH because we want more certainty or not, like there are a lot of other aspects that we don't necessarily see at the moment of the transaction that are quite unique. So what I find interesting in all of this, Mike, to be honest, is we see that this evolving more and more. You might be hearing a lot about AI and the different phases of the automation in general. That's one of the big things that I think is it's quite fascinating. We're already seeing some of this, right? When we think about the different financial institutions that allow you to use or to kind of automate certain flows or not. Like we see Stripe, for instance, doing some of this. That's quite unique. But the other thing that I find interesting in terms of user behavior is the security aspect, right? And that trust that you have to convey when you are presenting the different options at the checkout or in general, right? So we see that fraud today is definitely one of the biggest issues. But the other thing that we see, which is great, is that awareness now on the user part of things. So how you present those options, how you inform, how you educate the user, how you allow them to make better choices, that's also quite exciting. And we see a lot happening at the checkout experiences, but we also see a lot happening at the bank interfaces. For instance, I connected today with Chase that I needed to pay my credit card, and they were just, it seems like a random message, but I know it's not a random message. It was a pop-up telling me like, we are not going to allow users to send money if you are using an ID that was identified as a social, as an ID found in a social media platform. Like we know that Chase is changing the rules and all of that. So this connection between what the banks are seeing, what the data is telling us about the bad actors, and just posing as a good opportunity to kind of bring that sense of peace, no, to the user. That peace of mind. That's also quite exciting. And at the end of the day, it's just empowering the user to understand what they're doing and allowing them to decide, but having the right information before deciding. That's also exciting and unique.
You're clearly always thinking, you're always looking at the future and what the future could be, what it could hold. Tell me the ideal end game for payments from maybe a consumer's point of view. What does that near future experience look like, and how does that make life better and easier for us?
Yes, I think definitely we will see more and more on the AI part of things. You might be probably hearing more about the AI agents and all of that. So we're already seeing some of those signals today, but I think the future will be a little more dynamic, but at the same time, you will see some of these interactions and flows where the user is probably doing less, just interacting at the end of the flow, for instance. So one of the examples that I'm seeing, I was sharing this with my team, is a bank in Europe that was pretty much showing me or showing the user that, okay, it seems like you're paying something every month. It looks like it's the rent. So this the end of the month is approaching. Just to start right now instead of just having to go through the same process every time. So we will see more and more of those interactions at certain moments, like when you're booking a flight or when you are probably I don't know, booking a hotel or doing some other actions. That's more on the consumer part of things, but we will also see a lot of new and kind of pioneer things happening on the commercial aspect as well. So at the end of the day, I think being able to offer experiences that bring a lot of automation, that bring security, and at the same time help educate the user, those are some of the things that we will continue seeing more and more. So it has to be very seamless for the user. It has to be the benchmarks should be the basics that we have today, or the baseline that we have with Uber, where you just get to the car and then you leave the car. You don't remember what car you put or not, but you already paid and then you can continue, right? So that's the future, that conversational e-commerce that we are seeing more and more today. So it's very exciting, but we are all responsible to educate the user and to make them feel comfortable before making the decisions.
Yeah, I just went on a trip and I paid for my hotel room and the hotel room of the person I was traveling with, strictly business, mind you. And my credit card sent me a thing that said, hey, we noticed a charge twice on your card. Are you sure that this is correct? I'm like, oh, aren't you sweet? So, what are the current obstacles, the big obstacles that are still standing in the way of us getting to that ideal state that you kind of just mentioned?
Yes, I think, Mike, in general, there are a couple of things, right? First is that user trust, right? At the end of the day, we need to be sure that peace of mind is completely conveyed to the user so that that behavior can change. Now, that will take time, definitely. We see more and more of that advancement with the technology, but again, the technology needs to continue progressing. We see like biometrics coming into play. We see probably tokenization coming to kind of convey again that trust and again triggering the change in the behavior. So those two pieces are quite connected, but we're also seeing the regulatory aspect changing and transforming as well. So, okay, what are the rules that we need to play now? And at the same time, I'm also thinking that having clarity on some of the monetization or self-sustainable ecosystems can help to bring other actors to create new features and all of that. So I think it's about time, but we are seeing that acceleration happening, and it's very exciting. I think for anybody out there that is looking forward to seeing a new future, we just have to look at the news every day. We are seeing something new happening, but again, more of that maturity needs to be achieved to have a more solid ecosystem.
So it sounds like at the foundation, there's a larger need for integrations and interconnectivity to really build out that seamless payments ecosystem from a technical perspective and from a getting everyone to play nicely together perspective. How is that done? How do we accomplish that?
Yeah, no, that's interesting because as a person that has worked on the payments part of things, but from the banking perspective, but also from the fintech and e-commerce and all of that, I'm very convinced that we all need to have the balance between banks and financial institutions and fintechs. Not the partnership in general is something that will definitely play a big role. No? So that balance between being able to accelerate the implementation, which is something that you can get when you partner with the right partner, but at the same time, kind of keeping that experience for yourself or offering the best experience that you want to your client. So I think that conversation and that balance is quite important, but definitely partnerships will be critical when we think about open banking, for instance, when we think about lending, let's say some of the fintech solutions tapping into the different banking options, but offering a better user experience. Now you have a new service. So the orchestration, the payment hubs, and all of that, you definitely need to expand and open your mind to connect with the others that are expert on those areas, but that cannot accelerate your roadmap, which is at the end of the day what should matter for all of us, right?
So let's say there is open banking functionality, that's in place and it's working. How would you approach that opportunity in, say, opening accounts, funding accounts, whether that's for retail or small business?
Yeah, so definitely open banking is, we all know, right? It's a hot topic. I'm sure you guys are Yodlee getting a lot of interesting conversations. But if I take a look at what we're seeing today, but also what I was seeing back in the days when I joined my first bank in 2019 and comparing with Europe, et cetera, it's kind of a similar playbook, right? We think about consumer, definitely account funding, and even that onboarding or account portability. That might be a game changing here in the US, where I know for all of us it takes time to think and consider to move banks, but probably with open banking, those decisions will be accelerated now. So there will be definitely a shift in the user behavior that will, of course, trigger other conversations. But definitely account funding is quite interesting. The possibility with open banking to, as a user, to see where my account is being stored, right? Where do I have connections? How can I revoke those connections with certain billers if I don't feel comfortable with, and so on? Like giving me that power as a user is quite unique as well. And again, the user will benefit from all the different angles. The user, when it's joining to a new bank, for instance, as a bank, I will be able to know a little bit of your history in the other bank. I might be able to probably offer you better services based on your rate, just do some of a better cross-selling activity there. So as a user, you will benefit from that. But also if you go and try to pay using Pay by Bank and you go to the Walmart of the world, they might be incentivizing the pay by bank purchase, saying, okay, if you pay with us, I can give you $5 discount. So the user, again, will be at the center of all the conversations, which is quite exciting. But we also need to be responsible on how to educate and how to show the options. And what is interesting and what I really love about the open banking is that it's not only about the retail and the consumer itself, but it's also about the small businesses. So small businesses are at that position where they probably need to take the best that they can get from the retail, the best that they can get from commercial, but it's like, what is there for me, right? So open banking is one of those options where you can see account funding, you can see the possibility of building tailored dashboards to see all of your financial positions based on bank A versus B, et cetera, and have solidify a unified vision of your numbers in general. No? So that might be quite unique. We're already seeing some of those options, but we will see more and more of that as a always on behavior.
Pretend I'm a successful business person, just for the sake of argument. Beyond opening accounts, does connected banking offer me anything else? Like you touched on it on a little bit earlier. Is there a user data protection, fraud protection element?
Yes, definitely. So Yeah, I do see a couple of scenarios there that are quite unique, and it's just because of the connectivity. Let's say as a business, you will be able to, like I said, have probably a dashboard where you can see your different positions. You can see where your bank account is linked. You can probably revoke those accesses if you don't feel comfortable. You can probably be proactive and understanding. Let's say you read on the news, oh, there was a data breach on certain company. You know that you have an account there. You might be able to just revoke that access and kind of mitigate any potential fraud or losses there. So we will see the user getting more aware of these pieces that you were mentioning in terms of data sharing capabilities and so on. So that's kind of a beautiful use case. But at the same time, you will be able to move to other activities that might be a little more complex, like subscription management, for instance. You will be able to see, where am I spending the money? Do I really need to spend my money here or not? So that might be in a scenario. Or even if you are working with a platform that probably has other capabilities on top, you might be able to see your forecasting, but even with more intention. Like, am I about to fall into a non-sufficient funds scenario in XYZ months? Or what can I do? Can I request a line of credit right now instead of waiting until last minute? So this type of the flexibilities at the end of the day, but even more important, just the visibility. Sometimes the business might not know exactly where your money is going, no? Those small spends and all of that. So you can optimize those pieces, and at the same time, it's more for the consumer, but as a business, you might benefit from that as well. We see other interactions and other companies coming and offering you certain capabilities that can be quite unique. When you think about Debbie, for instance, which is a startup that based on gamification can offer you better products, or when you think about Money Lion, again, where I can just say yes, take a look at my finance, and based on that, they can offer me better loans or better credit cards. So those are some of the concrete examples that we're seeing today. But again, it's empowering the users and the companies to understand what they have, and probably have a better way of saying, I want something better than what I have now. So that might be a different game, Mike. For sure, it will be a different game.
Well, on the consumer side, let's zero in on payment enhancements. Enhance them how? What are the enhancements that are being explored today?
Yeah, so definitely we see a lot of conversations and innovation happening in terms of wallets, for instance, when you think about certain security features like tokenization, or even biometrics before pushing your card to the wallets, and just offering a more secure ecosystem end to end. So we will definitely see more and more of that. So those are some of the clear enhancements on the security part of things. But we also see better disbursement solutions, for instance. Let's say I'm a patient and probably certain hospital, they need to refund me $5 or something, so I don't have to be waiting for a check. I might get a link on my phone, and then I can click and decide how I want those $5 to be received. I can select, I don't know, Zelle, or I can select just a bank account, or just a card. When you think about capabilities like Visa Direct, for instance, and so on. So it's going to be faster, those interactions in general. Even the account opening process, like I mentioned, or let's say if you're moving funds between your brokerage account and your regular bank account, that will be easier when you think about request for payment with RTP, or faster payments in general. So everything is changing. We are definitely having more options to pay. Right now, at last minute, I can wait until last minute to pay my bill, and I know that the biller will get the money just on time, or I don't have to stress because I don't know, the mortgage needs to be closed before Friday. No, I might have the over the weekend if the financial institution is offering me real-time payments options. So again, those windows are getting wider, and at the same time, more options for the user, and without jeopardizing the time and the speed, which is what our users are still used to, right?
Yeah, right. Well, if I'm a bank, What do you think is important for me to know? What warning might you give so that they don't get kind of left behind when connected banking is empowering payments for their competitors' customers?
Yes, I think for banks, there are a couple of traditional use cases, right? But I think the most important thing is to understand how our users are transacting today. We know that probably millennials are more used to, or Gen Z will be even more used to open banking. Seeing a Yodlee screen that is asking me to include my bank account will not feel weird. So it will be kind of a business as usual reality. So that's the first thing, knowing how your users will be banking and the preferred options. So that will be pretty critical. And then knowing that with open banking and the connected options, you might enhance your experience. Like I mentioned, account funding, accelerate that, being able to get your funds deposited right now instead of waiting 3-4 days. If the connected payments are offering, let's say, guaranteed ACH and all of that. Or when you think about PFM, which is, I know we continue talking about this, but the example that I brought today, like, I know you're about to pay your rent. Don't worry. Don't wait until last minute. I'll prepare this template for you. You just hit next and then you're paying instead of having to go through the whole process from, to, etc. So I can accelerate some of those early steps of the process. So I think that that's quite important. And there is one thing, Mike, that I'm very passionate about, that is what I usually call identity as a service. That is this possibility of converting the data and or the data management, etc., into a revenue center. No, like imagine if you are banking a realtor company, and that realtor, and there is one realtor in that company that wants to show an apartment, right? Instead of just going and show the apartment to all the users, I can probably request send a query to my bank via Open Bank and understand, okay, is this user a good candidate for this listing? Does he or she have more than XYZ amount of dollars so they can afford this? Or yes or no, maybe I should offer something better. So this type of more contextual and more meaningful interactions, I think that will be happening. What happens if, again, I'm banking, let's say, a delivery company, and suddenly that delivery company needs to deliver certain goods, but they want to confirm, is that company ready to pay me now? Do they have the funds? Yes, though. Then now I'm going to deliver. So I don't have to go wait just to find out that they don't have the funds there. Like this type of interactions where the bank is at the center and can kind of convey those communication for further decisions. I think we will be seeing more and more of that. I work on some of those examples again back in the days when I was working in the Europe market. But now that things are getting more official in the US, we might be ready for that.
Those are some really interesting opportunities that you just kind of talked about. And you also touched on something I want to follow up on about, millennials, certain demographics are going to approach all of this differently. The older demographics, and frankly, the ones who are probably running the banks and the institutions, they see it as revolutionary, but younger generations see all this as expected, like, it's table stakes.
Exactly. And I might be expecting even more from my bank. I might expect more of those notifications, more of those, something similar to what we see on the phone every week when we check the weekly activity. I might want to see something like this from my bank. Like, tell me, where am I falling short, or what am I doing well? Am I getting healthier these days because I'm buying more on healthy food places versus the McDonald's of the world? Like, I might want to know more about who am I through the lenses of my bank. That might be one of the things that the users will be asking and demanding, but for sure the user will continue demanding that education and that understanding of how to move money, how to react, how to choose or pick the best option. So I'm always impressed with, when you go to the bank and you see transfer money, send money. Each bank has a different interface. So they say send money or transfer or ACH versus wires. I'm like, even for me that I work on the payment world, that sometimes it's confusing. So imagine for a user. So maybe the future is I just want to transfer money from A to B and that's it. And then you as a bank tell me, okay, you want it in XYZ hours or days or minutes. this will cost you this, and then I decide what I want to do. The same thing as a checkout experience. When you choose like 2 days delivery for $5, or you decide to wait 10 days for $0. The same with the payments and the money delivery. It's the same. At the end of the day, you're just moving money instead of moving the goods, right?
Well, payments is one of the more interesting spaces to watch, so I'm really glad that you were here, glad you were on the show with us today. If somebody wants to learn more about what we talked about, or maybe keep following your expertise, Gretchen, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I'm always on LinkedIn, always trying to, follow some of the great conversations. I'm very passionate about mentoring as well for those that want to enter the payment world. I would love to share some of this passion and some of the good debates. But yes, LinkedIn is definitely a good place to start. And looking forward to more conversations and more people joining the payment ecosystem to make it even more entertaining and fascinating than it is today, right?
And if you're listening, go ahead and subscribe to the show. You literally just have to tap a button and then you'll be right on top of what's going on in fintech and finserv. If you want to see how aggregated financial data might be of great use in your business, you can visit resources.yodlee, that's YODLEE.com/podcasts. And we'll see you next time on Data Driven Finance.